Ladies and gentlemen, here today to talk some Baltimore Ravens football live on Flock Friday here on Chase's Sports News. If you're a Ravens fan, you know him. Ingravenvids, welcome to the show, my man. Thanks for joining me.
Oh no, I appreciate you having me on, Chase. Thank you.
So glad to have you here. I've been following your work for a little while now, and I know we have some of your fans right here. We got a few right here commenting. So we're happy to have some fun here, hoping to have a really fun live stream talking some Baltimore Ravens football. We
Mhm.
appreciate you taking the time. For the audience, if you guys want to call in, the link is in there, the StreamYard link. You guys can try to call in, share your thoughts. We'll add you to the stream. You guys can talk to Ingravenvids for a minute or two. Let's have some fun. Let's talk some Ravens football here on a wonderful Friday as we are just a few weeks away from Baltimore Ravens football here in the NFL season. All right, real quick, Ingravenvids, for the audience that doesn't know, just tell them a little bit about what you do before we jump into it.
Oh, we post daily Baltimore Ravens content. Whatever's going on with the Baltimore Ravens, we just try to keep everybody informed and updated on it. So you can find
Well,
us on our channels, Ingravenvids, or Twitter, Instagram. Everything is Ingravenvids. I appreciate you.
yeah, we're so happy to have you here. Been following your work for a while, and the big conversation the past few days on your channel has been the Lamar
Mhm.
Jackson injury, and it's kind of been something not a lot of people are talking about. If you're not really in the Ravens realm right now, you're probably not really hearing much about it. But it's something where, with Lamar Jackson's injury history, Ravens fans are always on the edge of their seat when they hear something. So, um,
Mhm.
we obviously hear the whole situation. He's clenching his wrist. Then they say they x-rayed his foot. He was stepped on. It's just so much mixed reporting right now. What have you heard? What do you really believe is happening? And should Ravens fans be worrying about Lamar Jackson's long-term health?
Long term, I don't think so, but at the same time, it is still concerning because, like you said, it's been conflicting reports on everything that we've heard thus far. Because the first thing we heard, all right, Lamar Jackson, he got knocked down, he got stepped on, but he was holding his wrist and his hand was bothering him. And that's what everybody was reporting from jump. But then the spokesperson came out and, oh, no. He got his foot stepped on, but he's fine. So we're like, oh, okay, he's fine. All right, that's cool, he's good. So the
Right.
next day he's not at practice. It's like, oh, okay. We thought he was fine, but he's not at practice. So how fine is he? But then John Harbaugh after practice yesterday, he came out and said, hey, Lamar Jackson, he had x-rays on his foot, and they came back negative. So that kind of raised some hairs and eyebrows like, oh, he had to have x-rays on his foot, but okay, you want to be extra precautious, cool. And Harbaugh said that the x-rays came back negative. All right, and Harbaugh said that he'll be good. All right, cool. But then I was still thinking like, well, hold up. What about his hand and his wrist? Well, like what
Right.
happened with that? So now I think we're all at a wait and see approach to where we're just waiting to see Lamar Jackson back out on the practice field, waiting to see when he is back out on the practice field. Does he look himself? Does he look normal? I think that will really put all of us as Ravens fans at ease. But at the same time, I will say that with John Harbaugh years ago, when it came to him updating us on injuries, we didn't believe him because there have been many times when Harbaugh will say one thing, say, oh, this guy's week to week. Then that guy end up being out for the season.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy just has something minor. Then that guy will be out for months. It'll be stuff like that. But recently, over these past, I would say 2 years, John Harbaugh has been pretty accurate when it's come to updating us with injuries. So I do take his word for it, but at the same time, I will be able to relax when Lamar is back out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I just spoke with Cordell Woodland yesterday, an episode coming out on the podcast in the next few days. He said that, you could be extra precautionary. If he's not on the field Monday, then it's really something to start monitoring. At this point, though, you got to wonder, you don't want to take any risks when you have a player like Lamar Jackson.
Right.
You really just don't know what the Ravens are sharing and what they're not because, in 2022, was Lamar Jackson sitting out the end of the year because of the contract? Was he really hurt? It was that whole situation. But he was viewed as day-to-day after that injury against the Broncos, and he didn't play another game that season. So, that was pretty much the final third, final fourth of the year. So that's a decent portion, a decent chunk of the year. So we'll see if this ends up being anything serious. I don't think Ravens fans should worry right now. However, what they should worry about is in case Lamar Jackson does actually get hurt in a game this coming season, they got to have a really, really good backup. We're going to break down the backup quarterback situation in just a minute. A comment here from Race Hale Report. If Lamar gets hurt during the regular season, sorry to make the hypothetical, can they still thrive without him? Ingravenvids, maybe touch on that a little bit, the backup quarterback situation, how much value Lamar is really adding. If he's not on the field for X amount of time, how are the Ravens going to operate?
Thrive, I don't think we can use that word for the Baltimore Ravens if Lamar Jackson is not that out there on the
Right.
field. They do have a really, really good team that's built around Lamar Jackson with Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Lamar Jackson makes them a million times better because he is Lamar Jackson. There is no like, there's only one Lamar Jackson and that's it.
Right.
There's not a second Lamar Jackson. He's one of one. So he's extremely special. But if Cooper Rush had to take over, if a backup quarterback had to take over, thrive, I wouldn't say thrive. Could they still win some games? I think they could because their roster is very, very strong. You have one of the best running backs. Some people say the best running back in the game with Derrick Henry.
Right.
You have Pat Ricard leading the way for him. Now, offensive line, that's where my biggest concern would be if we had to do with the backup quarterback, because with the offensive line, they can be a bit up and down. And Lamar Jackson, with everything that he can do, he can make them look a lot better. He can avoid those pass rushes coming in and getting to him. So with Cooper Rush, that's not his specialty and that's not his forte. So as far as thriving, no. Could they still win? Because they should have a strong defense too. They could still win some games, but thrive, I can't say thrive.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing would have to be finding a quarterback who could fit Lamar Jackson's system. It's like in running back. If you have a starting running back, you usually like to pick their backup in fantasy because you really like the system. Kind of similar here in the NFL. There's no Lamar Jackson. There's not a Lamar Jackson duplicate that's sitting around in free agency. But is there someone else who can maybe fill a similar role? Now, I know the offensive scheme has changed since the Ravens switched regimes at offensive coordinator from Greg Roman to Todd Monken from 2022 to 2023. But in those 2 years, 21 and 22, where Lamar missed the end of the season, they put in Tyler Huntley. And no, they were not a good football team. In fact, they didn't win a game with Huntley in 2021. But it's good to mention they were right there with the Los Angeles Rams, who won the Super Bowl that year, right there with the Green Bay Packers, who were the number 1 seed that year. So the Ravens can still be a competitive football team without Lamar Jackson. To me, you just need a mobile quarterback in there so that Derrick Henry is still a prominent rushing threat. You can utilize the read option and still utilize the short passing game. To me, you need someone who's mobile in there. And to me, that was the concerning part about preseason so far, is not only have Devin Leary and Cooper Rush, I believe, both disappointed in preseason, neither of them can scramble that much, and neither of them are as mobile as a Tyler Huntley in previous years that the Ravens have had backing up Lamar Jackson. So that brings up a conversation in Ingravenvids that I want to touch on. Anthony Richardson is not the starter in Indianapolis. Maybe they're shopping him around, maybe they're not. Would you like the idea of bringing in Anthony Richardson to back up Lamar Jackson, because the talent's undeniable and he fits the system?
I wouldn't be mad at that at all. I definitely think there would certainly be an upgrade over Cooper Rush and Devin Leary. But how realistic would that be? Because the reason I question how realistic it would be is because, what was he, the number 4 overall pick?
Right.
But he, obviously, the Colts, it feels like they've given up on him. But at the same time, they still sort of have him in their savings account. Because with Daniel Jones, they said that he's going to be the starter. Anthony Richardson is going to be the backup. But I think that they want to keep him in their back pocket just in case Daniel Jones isn't looking good, just in case Daniel Jones were to, if he were to get hurt, if they just decided, you know what, Daniel Jones, this ain't working out, let's go back to Anthony Richardson. I think they just want to keep him around just so he's available as a backup for them. So, but I think it would be nice on the Ravens, but I can't see it happening, at least not right now.
We got a decent live audience. Guys, call in, comment. Should the Ravens go for Anthony Richardson? Should they not? Any backup quarterback alternatives? Look, you don't want to overreact to preseason. You know, Rush has had success in the NFL before. But again, does he fit the system? Is he going to be a great backup if Lamar Jackson does go down? This is a conversation Ravens fans don't want to have. They hope Lamar Jackson could stay on the field. He's been available the past 2 years, hasn't dealt with any serious injuries. You knock on wood that that's going to remain the case in 2025, and that the Ravens are going to remain contenders if that is the case. But yeah, I mean, to me, I guess the question would be, what's the asking price? Because clearly the asking price is not what would be trading for the number 4 overall pick. It's more like trading for the least efficient quarterback in the NFL the past 2 years. So what would you think the asking price would be, considering that Daniel Jones is not that prominent number 1 starter? And you're right, they may want to keep AR in their back pocket just in case.
See, what's tricky about that is that I'm sure if this was after if he wasn't still on that rookie contract, then it would be a lot easier to facilitate something like that. I think from the Colts standpoint, as far as an asking price, with him being on that contract, they may feel like, okay, that's a way to sort of get it off the books or whatnot. So they may be willing to take a little bit less for an Anthony Richardson with him being on there. So I think right now, if they were to trade him, still don't think it's likely, but if they were to trade him, I think a third rounder would get it done. Even though that even sounds kind of high for somebody who
Right.
you could just tell the Colts like gave up on. So yeah, I
It's like
think
they don't really have the leverage at this point. Yeah.
yeah, I think a third or fourth rounder will probably get it done. Because you would have to take on, actually, you know what, with the other team having to take on his rookie contract, probably a fourth rounder. I say a fourth rounder, fourth and some change. So let me like a fourth and 6 and 7, or maybe a fourth and a seventh, something like that. Nothing too crazy. Because he has started some games in this league, and there's still that potential, because as I know, with a lot of quarterbacks, so much depends on their situation, where they get drafted to. It depends on the organization. And with the Colts, they were put in a really, really tough spot, because one day Andrew Luck was there, and by the end of the day, he wasn't anymore. He decided to retire. So that was really, really tough for them. That was just, that was crazy. But with Anthony Richardson, obviously, it just hasn't worked out. And like you talked about, he has been very, very inefficient. But sometimes, as we've seen before, like look at Geno Smith. He started off with the Jets, and people were like, "Oh, I don't know about him." But then he ended up going to the Seahawks, and he had some success over there. So, and now he's on the Raiders, and I would expect him to do a lot of the same. So, so much just depends on situation. So with Anthony Richardson, I could see sort of a revival of his career if he were to be able to be behind a Lamar Jackson. He could learn from a Lamar Jackson, learn from Baltimore Ravens coaching staff, and then he could end up showing himself in some of those preseason games, and then probably getting shipped out for another opportunity for a resurgence in his career.
The comparison point I've always had for Anthony Richardson has been Josh Allen, because they both came out of college. Both are very inaccurate. Both have a really strong arm, can run around. But at the same time, those comparisons, they're no longer aligning, because Josh Allen was in the playoffs in year 2. Anthony Richardson certainly was not in the playoffs in year 2. Instead, threw more interceptions and touchdowns. So, look, it's a conversation that I think maybe the Ravens should consider if Richardson is on the open market. That's even a question to begin with. Are they going to be willing to, them being Indianapolis, are they going to be willing to give him up? You mentioned situation. Shout out Connor Long here. Jet up, baby, Super Bowl season loading. Yeah, not quite. I don't think so, but good luck with that one. But you're right. It does depend on situation. It does depend on system. That system the Ravens have going on, it's one of the best in the National Football League, and I think it is worth noting. So real quick, let's talk about what some of the things you have noticed from preseason, because we're 2 games down, 1 more to go. What stood out to you?
Mike Green. Mike Green has been somebody that has just been everything as advertised. I always call Mike Green, he's the Baltimore Ravens' second first-round pick from this draft, because obviously he should have been a first-round pick, but the off-the-field stuff that pushed him down to the second. But he has just been amazing. It's like you hear about him from practice and from training camp, but then there's some of those times when you hear about different players in practice and training camp, but then when it comes to the games, it can be kind of quiet, and that can be due to a lot of different situations. But with Mike Green, it is not that. In the game against the Colts, he was just consistently around the quarterback, wreaking havoc, making noise, and then he followed it up again in the Cowboys game, and he was a big part of why Keon Martin was able to get that safety. He just crashes that offensive line. He has just been just amazing. So I can't wait to see him next to, in a Dafe way, Kyle Vanoy, Travis Jones, Nnamdi Madubuike, him being with the starters on defense, getting that opportunity. Somebody else who has been making his impact, even though we haven't got to see him quite as much, but I'm glad that they've been having it this way, has been first-round draft pick Malachi Starks. Yeah, because he's literally, I think, played one drive or one series every game, every preseason game, and then John Harbaugh said, "All right, that's it, done."
Yeah, I mean, that's their starting safety right now. They can't afford to have him this time. Yeah,
exactly. So, and in that little short amount of time that he's played in both games, he's made a play in each. It was a really nice tackle in the first preseason game, and then the second game, it was that nice pass breakup. So Malachi Starks, he's another one you've been hearing over and over, keep hearing his name in practice, and all the vets talking about him. Oh man, he's really, really good. He's way ahead of his years. He's ahead of his time. He doesn't seem like he's a rookie, but then we see plays like he's made in preseason so far. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. We love it. Now, somebody who is sort of on the flip side of that, to where when I read the reports from the beat writers about Ravens practice, I haven't really seen his name come up too much in practice, but in the games, he just keeps making plays. And that's undrafted rookie free agent from Iowa, Jay Higgins, the linebacker. So the first game he had an interception, a couple of pass breakups. The last game he had the sack, the forced fumble recovery. I forget which one it was, but he just keeps on showing up on game day. So I expect a lot more tomorrow in the game against the Commanders. So that's been nice to hear. And then another one who has really jumped out, you've heard his name a lot in practice, and the opportunity is right there in front of him, has been undrafted rookie free agent Ruben Lowry. We keep hearing about every single practice, every single training camp session. He is breaking up a pass, whether it's getting an interception, causing an incompletion. And then in the game, especially last week, we saw him, and I had to say, wait a minute, is that number 20 for the Ravens or is that number 30? Because he looked a little like Ed Reed on that interception that he got against the Cowboys. It looked really, really good. So Ruben Lowry, it was tricky with him because we heard so many good things about him throughout training camp, but he was up against a lot because he had Robert Longerbeam in front of him, had Bilal Kone, the two Ravens 6th-round draft picks at corner. He had Jalen Armour-Davis, of course, TJ Tampa. And I would say those 4 guys were the guys that he would be battling with essentially for a roster spot. But Robert Longerbeam and Bilal Kone, they're both out for the season, unfortunately. So that does boost him up. But then they said that they've been trying him at different corner spots, but also at safety too. So that can make him that much more valuable and that much more likely to get a roster spot on the 53 for the Baltimore Ravens, especially because they always say you can never have enough secondary players. And that is very, very true, as we know as Ravens fans, because we've done been through it with the secondary. But Ruben Lowry is somebody who I think he makes the team as well.
Yeah, guys, we've got a decent live audience. If you want to call in, talk about some things that have stood out from preseason. I know real quick something that I'm going to show is the reason why I was ecstatic when you mentioned Jay Higgins is because I've loved Jay Higgins from the start. He went undrafted because of a bad combine. The combine's overrated. I've said it from the start. And I was just recently on Samuel Njoku's podcast, and this is something that I was trying to bring up. I'm sharing my screen right here. Let's take a quick listen to this video. Let me know if you guys can hear it. And kind of as I'm speaking, I'm also pulling up my own 53-man projection that I made earlier this week for the Baltimore Ravens. The one guy that I had on there even before last night's game, as I mentioned him earlier, it's Jay Higgins. To me, I think he should definitely make this roster, considering the scoring hole we talked about at inside linebacker next to Roquan Smith. Again, good instincts. He's physical. He could force turnovers, just a really high motor. The guy's just so aggressive, which I love from an inside linebacker. He went undrafted, let's be honest, because of a bad draft combine. And this is a completely different discussion for a different day. I think the combine is completely overrated.
Thank you.
People could say other things, whatever. To me, how fast a guy can run in an exact straight line is not the measure of how great a player could be. Or if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed one day, how should that judge or how should that be the evaluation for talent going into the NFL draft? That's the reason why he went undrafted, which is not because last year led the Big Ten in solo tackles, led the Big Ten in combined tackles the year before. And he was an All-American last year with 4 interceptions. Not a lot of people are talking about that. Really good in pass protection as well. So this is a guy who's proven it at college, was undrafted because of a bad combine, and now has been in preseason and miles better to me than anybody else at that inside linebacker spot. To me, Jay Higgins, I don't know if anyone else has officially secured a roster spot that we didn't know had one to begin with, except for Jay Higgins. To me, he should be the undrafted gem that's on the 53-man roster in week 1. So there was what I said. One of my favorite videos ever because, it's not just, bringing up Lamar Jackson or anything. It's this undrafted gem. And I'm proud to say the video is currently up to 1.6 million views on TikTok. So had to show that, the really, really cool stuff. But yeah, I love Jay Higgins. I want to touch on him for a second. There is that glaring hole at inside linebacker, as I, in the past, just mentioned, next to Roquan Smith. Maybe it's Trenton Simpson. He looks improved in training camp, hasn't done much in preseason. Maybe it's Teddy Buchanan, 4th-round pick. Do you think Jay Higgins can maybe fill that void next to Roquan Smith?
I think it'll be tough. I think it's possible, but I think it will be tough. I think the Baltimore Ravens, he would really like – because I think they want to go with something that's more of a quote unquote safe option. As far as whether it be Trenton Simpson, because he does have experience out there. Teddy Buchanan, I think they would just lean to Trenton Simpson more. I don't think they're going to want to go with either a drafted rookie or an undrafted rookie free agent. Again, anything's possible because if you're a baller, you're a baller. If you can play, you can play. But I think that they're going to lean more towards Trent Simpson being the guy that's out there next to Roquan Smith. I think they may bank on everything last year that was going on behind them, attributing to how bad that defense was. Because remember, Trent Simpson was the starter last year until he wasn't, because he ended up getting benched. And then they ended up going with Malik Harrison and, oh my goodness, Chris Board.
Chris Board, yes.
As the linebackers.
Pro Bowl special teamer, I think, on 1 year. He's a great on special teams, yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris Board. I think he's with the Giants now, I believe. But yeah,
Harrison's with the Steelers, all the Ravens inside linebackers just leave for the Steelers. So
if you line up next to Roquan Smith, then you're headed to Pittsburgh the following year. So we'll see what happens with Trent Simpson when his contract expires. But I think they'll lean towards him. With Jay Higgins, there's a chance, but he's got to do a lot of climbing on the roster in order to get that opportunity. Hopefully, because I was gonna say, if Trent Simpson doesn't look as good as they hope, then I think that would open the way for Jay Higgins possibly. But I think he'll have to get through Teddy Buchanan and possibly even Jake Hummel too. But I think it will be a little bit before he could end up being a starter next to Roquan Smith.
Real quick, we have Level Up Sports with Leo. Thanks for commenting, just joining in. What are your guys' takes on rookie Mike Green? We actually just mentioned him right before you did log in. We're loving Mike Green. Love what we've seen from him in camp. Love what we've seen from him in the preseason. Really talented player. And I think with Kyle Van Noy, I think final year of his contract, if I'm getting that right. Odafe Owe, final year of his contract as well. Probably will not be with Baltimore long-term. They probably cannot afford him. Can Mike Green, be that future player at the pass rusher, that future star? We'll have to see. I'm really high on him. And the fact that the Ravens were able to snag him in the second round, another just unbelievable draft pick from Eric DeCosta.
Yeah. And with Mike Green, something about that. Remember when the Baltimore Ravens drafted Odafe Owe? That's the year they took him and Rashad Bateman in the first round.
Yep.
With Odafe Owe, he was very, very raw coming out of college, extremely raw. Didn't have much experience. Was not productive in college really at all. But they took him based off of his athletic ability. He was like 6'5". I think he ran like a 4.4 maybe, but he was just an athletic freak. I remember Justin Houston, our old outside linebacker, he said that he called him a created Madden player because that's how he has such a crazy build. But with Odafe Owe, extremely raw coming out of college, not productive coming out of college. But to see where he is now, you see the development of Odafe Owe, how the Baltimore Ravens, they really got him to another level. And now with him being in a contract year, like you mentioned, I expect him to just continue to just get better and really go crazy. Because Ravens pass rushers in contract years, that's when they really turn it up a notch. Because I could understand they want to get that money, but with everything that Odafe Owe has been through, with everything, with where he is now, based off of where he was at from his rookie year, that makes us that much more excited for Mike Green because he was productive in college. He is a lot more experienced and seasoned as a pass rusher coming out of college than Odafe Owe was. So to see where Ravens have Odafe Owe now, just imagine what they can do for Mike Green right here, right now, but also in the future.
Yeah, he did lead the FBS in sacks last year. He's just such a tremendous talent, and he has proven it at college. We're excited to see what he can do at the NFL level. Guys, right now it's 12:54. We're going to try to wrap up around 1 o'clock. So if you guys want to call in any last comments, just please let us know. There is something I want to talk about. There are some obvious topics. I feel like we can break down the defense, the kicker, whatever. There is a breakout guy that I think a lot of Ravens fans know, but is he going to be able to, be that difference maker? And that is DeAndre Hopkins. And because we've seen him do it before. We've seen him be that, tremendous asset for this Baltimore Ravens team, or for a different team, but now he's with Baltimore, getting older in his career, probably the fifth option behind the two wideouts and the two tight ends. How is maybe a less of a role and less usage maybe going to help maximize what is still left in DeAndre Hopkins?
It's all about efficiency. And that's the beautiful thing with the DeAndre Hopkins, because, he is expected to have a much lesser role here with the Baltimore Ravens. And it's nice that us as Ravens fans are even in this situation in the first place, because when it's come to wide receivers, we have been through it in a major way. So to be able to say, like, oh, our top two wide receivers are homegrown drafted guys by the Baltimore, not somebody else's wide receivers, not people that we traded for, not people that we signed in free agency, but our own homegrown guys. That's a beautiful thing. So shout out to Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, and shout out to the Baltimore Ravens for really changing the way that they handled wide receivers and really changing the offense. And it really started with Todd Monken. So shout out to him. But with DeAndre Hopkins in the role that he's expected to have, just be ready. And I love that because Ravens, they, in my opinion, they didn't need a DeAndre Hopkins. And that's
They
crazy
don't.
to say
Yeah.
for Baltimore Ravens fans that we didn't need a DeAndre Hopkins, but he is a luxury. But he's a nice luxury to have somebody that has played in every single type of game that there is to play in, somebody that has the experience as being that number one receiver, but to have somebody who has been a number one receiver before sort of take that backseat role. And then something else to think about. Like you mentioned that he is the fifth option, but behind Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, behind Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely when he gets back. But he may even be a further back option than that because of the Ravens offense, because you have a Derrick Henry as well. You still have a Justice Hill. And then, of course, Lamar Jackson, he can do his thing too. So it's nice that the Ravens have so much in their arsenal when it comes to the weapons that they have. And with DeAndre Hopkins, he certainly helps. He helps a lot. Veteran, he got some nice hands, run some good, strong routes. And he still got plenty left in the tank. I remember a lot of people look at last year and they say, oh, man, this dude DeAndre Hopkins, he ain't nothing crazy. The year before that, you got to think about it. The year before that, he went for over 1,000 yards with Will Levis. But even last year, he started off on the Titans team that really wasn't much of anything. And then he got traded to the Chiefs in the middle of the season.
It was great. Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah, he got traded to the Chiefs in the middle of the season. And, Chiefs offense, we're used to them like lighting people up. Their offense was not what their offense normally is in years past. But DeAndre Hopkins, he did his thing last year. So we're getting a healthier DeAndre Hopkins. But like you said, he will not be relied upon as nearly as much. He won't have the same role that he had in previous years. And it is similar to what his role was with the Chiefs last year, because he wasn't their number one option last year at all. And he's not going to be the Baltimore Ravens number one option this year. But it is nice to know that somebody who has that experience as a number one option, like that is one of our, not necessarily depth wide receivers, but he is one of our, I can't even call him a backup guy, but he's a role player at wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens.
It's crazy to say DeAndre Hopkins and role player in the same sentence.
Yeah.
But I've said this now on many accounts, and I'm a dire Baltimore Ravens fan. While reporting about the team as well, and a lot of people are like, you should try to get Ravens in fantasy or whatever. If it's a Ravens pass catcher, I think I'm passing, because there are so many guys in this room. There's not going to be one guy that's going to be able to stand out among the rest. I don't think the Ravens will have a 1,000-yard receiver or pass catcher this year, even if everyone stays healthy, because I don't think a player on this roster will be able to get the ball enough to get 1,000 yards, because DeAndre Hopkins is certainly a better third option than Nelson Aguilar was. I think we're going to see a better split this year between Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I think they're going to utilize Charlie Kolar as well. I think they're going to run a lot of a 3 tight end set. Who knows how Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell are maybe utilized out of the backfield. I just think as a whole, especially for a team that is a run-first offense with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry at the helm in the backfield, I think it's really hard and unreasonable to expect a guy to reach 1,000 yards. And to me, if that's the case, that's a good thing, because that means that this team is spreading the ball around and working the ball to different options in the passing game, which I think will improve how this team can play long-term.
Oh, it definitely does. I would say I could see Mark Andrews getting 1,000 yards.
Really?
If I had to pick 2 candidates, I would say Mark Andrews and probably Zay Flowers, because he gets a lot of targets too. But the reason I start off with Mark Andrews is because of the start of the season with Isaiah Likely still not being back yet. And we don't know when he's going to be back from his injury yet. But Mark Andrews is going to be the guy early on at tight end for the Ravens. So I can see him really racking that up. Him and Lamar obviously have that crazy connection. Lamar has the ultimate trust for Mark Andrews. And I think they're really going to want to show, because Ravens have already shown plenty of times that they hear what everybody's saying about them. They hear what the media says. They hear what the fans say. They let it be known that they hear all of it. So Mark Andrews is obviously a hot topic this offseason because everything that happened in Buffalo and everything that's happened in previous playoff games. But I think the Ravens are really going to want to show, like, hey, Mark Andrews, he still got it, which he certainly does. I mean, the game in Buffalo, it was a rough fourth quarter for Mark Andrews. It was tough. But it did not make him, oh, he's a bad player now, he's a terrible type. Oh, no, Mark Andrews is still like that. He can still ball. And with Isaiah Likely being out for however long he's out for, and then even when he gets back, I'm sure it's gonna be sort of a ramp up period for Isaiah Likely. I don't think they're just going to throw him out there. All right, Isaiah Likely, you're going to be the number one
Right.
tight end. No, I couldn't
Yeah.
see that. So that's why I could see Mark Andrews getting 1,000 yards, because I think he's going to be a consistent option. Something that somebody brought up to me the other day. This will be Mark Andrews, his first offseason fully healthy since, I believe, 2021 or 2022. But because last year, no, was it 2 years ago or last year with the car accident? I think it was last year. And then I know he had another injury before that too, but this will be his first full offseason in a while, fully healthy. And again, with Isaiah Likely not ready yet, who knows when that will be, then I expect him to get a chunk of the targets. And with Zay Flowers, he gets a lot of targets thrown his way as well. So I can see him getting 1,000 yards too. With Rashad Bateman, he gets a good amount of targets, but Rashad Bateman, he's super efficient. I don't see him getting 1,000 yards, but he's very, very efficient.
He's the guy. He's the guy you go to on the deep ball. He's not going to consistently get the ball, but when you need a big chunk play, you go to Isaiah Likely and you go to Rashad Bateman. Those are the two guys on this roster, I feel, who accomplish that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when you need a touchdown, you go to number 7, because that was him last year. Just scored a bunch of touchdowns. Zay Flowers got a good amount of yards, but it was Rashad Bateman who scored a bunch of touchdowns. But like you said, with everybody that we have in this offense, it's a beautiful thing. It is so nice that we have so many different players that can get the job done, and that's been a big ever since we brought on Todd Monken. That's when the offense really changed, because back in the Greg Roman days, the offense wasn't bad, but I feel like it had just peaked, and it peaked early, and it just sort of got stagnant to where it wasn't growing anymore. But with Todd Monken, from his first year, one of the first things I noticed about him in his first season as offensive coordinator was the way that he was able to establish weapons on our team, establish different guys, so many different guys being legitimate weapons for the Baltimore Ravens. And then in the second year as offensive coordinator, it got even better. So now in the third year, with even more weapons, with this already established really good offense, I expect it to get even better, because our personnel is just crazy. Offense, defense, but speaking about offense right now, personnel, it's insane. We have so much quality starters. We have so much quality depth, quality role players, but Ravens are in such a really, really good position when it comes to their offensive playmakers.
Yes, they are. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen this coming year. I also think I want to touch on the Mark Andrews point real quick before I ask you one more question, then we wrap it up, because I do think that we're going to see him angry this year. I feel like he's just out to kill the league this year. Like, he's in a position where he's like one of the greatest Ravens pass catchers of all time. If you just look at the longevity, the statistics, the connection he's had with Lamar Jackson, he's been a key reason why Lamar has blossomed into that MVP level quarterback. He's been a huge reason why this team has had success. And let's be honest, he blew it in the biggest moments. 2 drops, the fumble to me was the worst part. And so when you look at that, you have an entire fan base now that used to love him that now hates him. And I think he's just going to go out on the field and be like, all right, guys, I'm going to show you I'm still that guy. And so if there is going to be a year where Mark Andrews is going to have 1,000 yards, it could be this year again. I still think he is that level of a player. I just don't know if he'll be able to get enough targets more than Isaiah Likely to be able to get there. But 100%, I think he'll be a useful asset who will again be utilized in the red zone like he was last year, led all tight ends and touchdown catches. And I also think it's a situation where the Ravens are going to keep Isaiah Likely long-term. Are they going to be keeping Mark Andrews long-term as well? This could maybe be his message for another big contract, and maybe his, final moment in Baltimore to show that he is still that guy, if this is going to be his last season with the Ravens. And he's going to want to win a Super Bowl. This team's going to want to win a Super Bowl. They're close every single year. Ingravenvids, you know it just as well as me. Every single year, this team is in the mix, thanks to Eric DeCosta, thanks to John Harbaugh, now Lamar Jackson. But every single year, they're not hoisting the Lombardi. As close as they can get, as great of a team as they have, as dominant of a roster on paper as they always produce, they just cannot come up when it matters most in the postseason. So I'm wrapping it up. My question to you, Ingravenvids, is this the year that the Ravens go all the way?
I will certainly hope so. So many times you hear people say it's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmys and Joes. So that means that, hey, it's about having the best players and the best team that you possibly can. The Baltimore Ravens, over the past 2 years, they've had some excellent teams, some excellent rosters. But this year, they really Like
This
their
is this
roster
is
is
better.
amazing.
I think it's the best roster we've seen on paper around Lamar Jackson thus far.
Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely is. And what's crazy about it is that Eric DaCosta, he didn't even get everybody who he wanted to get because he was trying to sign CJ Mosley, but CJ Mosley had the neck injury, and he was forced to
Right.
retire. So that man, we we would have been set at linebacker too, like Roquan Smith and CJ Mosley. Oh,
Yeah.
that would have been crazy. But the way that this roster is built is very, very nice. And it's a roster that should be able to overcome mistakes, should be able to dominate in different phases of the game. It's important that I expect the Baltimore Ravens to continue to have the regular season success. Now, postseason is what everybody is concerned about, and
Right.
obviously they should be, because that's where Ravens have struggled at. They've been winning. They won a postseason game the past couple of years, but then they followed it up with a loss because last year they beat the Steelers and then lost to the Bills. The previous year before that, they beat the Texans and then lost to the Chiefs. But
I thought that was going to be the year in 2023. Like I was about
yeah,
to already book a hotel room for the parade. Like I was like, this is it, because no one touched that team the entire year. I truly wonder what happened. I mean, obviously they collapsed, but the fact that they lost the way they did with that little offensive movement throughout the whole game was just so
whole
disappointing.
game. They scored 10 points, man. 10 points. And it's what's crazy if you
Mahomes 17. Like Mahomes didn't do much.
yeah, that's true. I think how much did he have in the second half? Was it no points or was it like 3 or it was something crazy low?
Yeah, I think it was 17-7. Yeah, I don't think they scored in the second half.
Yeah, so to be able to keep a Chiefs team with Patrick, like you, if you would have thought, oh, Patrick Mahomes, he must have got kicked out of the game. He must have got hurt and left the game early. Oh, because the Chiefs ain't scored any second half points. But no, he was playing, and Ravens held them out of the end zone. So you would think, oh, okay, they should have had it in the bag, but no, they didn't. And then last year against the Bills, they came up just short. And what's crazy about the Ravens, I always say this is the most frustrating thing about them in the playoffs when they lose, is that they'll lose these games in the playoffs by 1 or 2 points, always by one score. They never get ran out the building. It's never a blowout. It's always a super close game. But if you look back at the games, every single one, and it's a turnover here, a turnover there, if they would have just held on to that ball and not given it up, then you could think, oh my goodness, these Ravens, they could be not only winning these games, but winning them decisively too. But they just keep giving the ball away. And then with the defense, in my opinion, they've been playing good in the playoffs, but it
don't force
be better.
Turnovers. They don't force turnovers.
That part right there, because if the Ravens offense, they can't afford to make mistakes in the playoffs. And obviously we don't want them making mistakes, but it'd be nice if they could afford to. The defense could be like, you know what? No, we got your back. Because I look at a team, and I mean, they obviously had a tremendous roster. They have a tremendous roster every year too. The Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, he throws an interception in the playoffs, Super Bowl, whatever. Defense is like, hey, Jalen, it's okay. We got you. We'll get the ball back for you. Don't even worry about it. And if Saquon Barkley, if he decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and fumble right here. Oops, I fumbled the ball. And the defense is like, hey, Saquon, it's all right. We got you. We'll get the ball back for you. They're not going to get a point. They're not going to get a yard. In fact, we'll even force a turnover. If the Ravens had that on defense too, that will put them in a much better position to win the game.
I don't mean to cut you off. I saw
you're good.
I saw the stat the other day, and I think it's like Hurts has had in his playoff career 15 drives in opposing territory. This is like in their first 4 playoff appearances for everyone. Hurts has had 15 drives in opposing territory. Mahomes has had 10 drives. Allen's had like 7. Burrow's had 6. Lamar has had 0 drives in his playoff career in opposing territory. The Ravens defense has forced 1 turnover in that span. So yes, the Ravens defense is a great defense in the regular season, but they're not a great defense in the playoffs. And to me, that is why I always bring this up. If it is an entire team collapsing, it's not just Lamar. It's the Zay Flowers and the Mark Andrews of the world who are fumbling the ball and turning the ball over. It's the Derrick Henrys that are dropping the football on the first drive. Don't think I forgot about that, Derrick. And then it's also the defense. It's not stepping up. To me, if it's a colossal failure across the board from the entire organization, that's on Harbaugh. And so to me, it's show up or shut up, John, because to me, how long can you continue to roster the most talented team in the entire NFL year after year. When the Ravens are at their best, no one's touching them, Ingravenvids. No one's touching them. No one is close to them when they're at their best. But the fact that they can't even be anywhere near their best in the postseason every year across the board is so frustrating. And at some point, I point to you, John Harbaugh, and I say, figure it out. Because if not, let's get someone else who can figure that out.
Yeah, that's deep right there. And I do agree. Like they have, I hear a lot of people say, oh, this year, the Ravens, they have no excuses this year. No excuses to get it done to not get it done this year. But I say, no, Ravens, it's been years. They haven't had excuses for years. This year is no different. But last year was no excuse. The year before that, it was no excuse either. But yeah, I certainly agree that Ravens need to step it up, and they've had plenty of opportunities to get it done, but they keep on coming up short. And yeah, you do have to look at the leader of the team, which is certainly John Harbaugh for that. He harbors a lot of that.
And I love John. I think he's a great head coach. I love John. I think he's a great head coach. I think he can get there. And hopefully this isn't the conversation this time next year, but eventually they got to get over the hump. I think John will do it, but he's got to do it.
Yeah, it needs to get done for sure. I agree.
Ingravenvids, this has been absolutely awesome. Hopefully this is the year that the Baltimore Ravens go all the way, hoist the Lombardi, and we watch Lamar Jackson forever live as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I truly believe one Super Bowl. He's already has 3 first-team All-Pros, maybe another one if he again thrives in the regular season. If you have 3 first-team All-Pros, a Super Bowl, probably a Super Bowl MVP to coincide with it, he's a top 10 quarterback of all time by year 8. So
he's 2 MVPs too.
Yeah. Right. And so he is really right near that level where, like, 1 Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowls, like, you're getting into historic conversations for Lamar Jackson. It's going to be a fun season for Ravens football, so I'm really excited for it. To answer this one last question, Chase wants to fire John Harbaugh. No, I don't want to fire John Harbaugh, but I got to see him do it when it matters most. We're going to wrap it up here. Ingravenvids, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me on, Chase. Thank you, man.
Great conversation. Guys, check out Ingravenvids on YouTube, all those social media, doing a lot of great stuff over there. So please be sure to check out his work. And thank you guys so much. This is our highest performing live stream in the history of the channel on all of our social media platforms. So I cannot thank you guys enough. We're just a few weeks away from Baltimore Ravens football season. We got some 32 on 32s coming out, previewing the NFL seasons, all that types of stuff, and a really special guest coming this Tuesday. I'm not going to spoil it yet. You guys will have to find out. Subscribe, follow, everyone. Thank you guys so much. We're going to sign it off here alongside Ingravenvids. I am your host, Chase Coburn, signing off here from Flock Friday. Take care.